Good evening. Very welcome in our series about understanding economics, some economic insights with Mr. Helmo Preus. This fourth video will focus on governance, and we will look at different types of governance that plays a big role because it is a link between economics and politics and to some extent philosophy and other disciplines as well. Now, in the previous video, we have already talked about the ESGs in the link to this specific video, and this video we will also focus on sustainable governance and self-governance. There are obviously also other areas of regional economic governance that's important. Given the South African election recently, where the ANC didn't achieve a majority for the first time, what influence do you think it will have on the, if at all, on the SADC region and trade within SADC? Or will it be just business as usual, given the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the slow progress of it before the African Continental Agreement was established in terms of regional integration in the region as well as in Africa to a much greater extent?
So it will be largely business as usual, and you've got to remember that the Secretariat is headed up by a South African, so there will be major influence in that. In terms of economic integration, both Namibia and Mozambique have major oil and gas discoveries that will require South African expertise and engineering skills going forward. So, and for the last several months already, Mozambique has been our fourth largest export partner. So, and that's going to continue. And if we look at what happened in the first 4 months of this year, exports to the rest of Africa was the biggest growth factor, beating all other regions. So there is, within South Africa, there is a major focus on exporting to the rest of Africa.
Okay, that's good news, because always it was a problem of, and it still is, but at least there's progress in terms of we don't trade with each other enough.
But as I say, now Mozambique is the fourth biggest export destination. And in the not too distant future, I think Namibia will be close to that as the oil and gas and green hydrogen comes to fruition.
Yeah, that's right. In terms of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the type of governance needed for that is highly technical, less political, and I don't think always Africans have got the technological competencies or the will, the political will, to move faster in this process to form a bloc. And to have any influence at all on the European Union to a far greater extent until now. How do you see that unfold in the next couple of years?
Japan has a major influence in terms of promoting one-stop border posts. So about half of them have been in part funded by the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA. So Kazangula, for instance, was in JICA was involved in that, and they are pushing both in terms of customs and also just in terms of logistics, because it also provides an opportunity for Japanese companies to trade with the rest of Africa. So it's a win-win situation in terms of that.
Yeah. Okay. If we look at the governance provided by professional organizations like auditors and accountants and lawyers. I mean, it's a well-known fact that most audit companies have been found guilty in South Africa one or other time. Even all banks, as far as the big banks in South Africa as well as in Namibia. There are some exceptions. Do you think the audit profession is have got the ability to renew itself and provide a better image of not being for sale, to provide financial statements that's pure and correct and not just for the sake of the company's best share price?
No. Well, and at one stage, the audit firms consisted of the big five, and then Enron collapse happened, and Arthur Andersen disappeared.
Yes.
So KPMG has been involved in various scandals around the world, not only in South Africa, but other countries as well. Deloitte as well doesn't have a stellar reputation. And your problem is that if one of these disappears, then you would only have the big three, and then it becomes even worse. So it is a problem in terms of the audit profession, and so there is a space for medium tier audit companies to take up the slack in terms of that and help the audit profession reinvent itself.
If one look at the regulators, the role that the regulators play, now I can only speak from a Namibian point of view, that the regulators in Namibia is very closely associated with the government. And as I see the role of the regulator as to be more independent, where you have a supplier. If we take, for example, petroleum, Namco Core is the regulator, petroleum, but it's also the main supplier, bulk supplier. While you determine the policy on behalf of the Ministry of Mines Energy, and then it is also competing with the private filling station owners in meeting the needs of the end customer, where they are opening up more than 256 filling stations over the next year. Now, given that situation where there's absolutely no independence and absolute opportunity for corruption, is it different in South Africa, or do you have examples that are far better than the one that I described here about Namco in Namibia?
Well, there is much more independence in terms of South Africa, and there's a watchdog in terms of the public protector. So that helps, and without the public protector, there wouldn't have been a state capture commission. So it is independent of the government, and they are effective. Not all institutions are that effective, and there's still a problem in terms of the independence of the anti-corruption unit. It should be. Previously, we had the Scorpions, and then came the Hawks, but the Hawks report to the Minister of Police, so it's not as independent as the Scorpions. But that might change now if there's a coalition government, that the independence of something like the Hawks becomes there. So in terms of the South African situation, the regulators are much more independent, and they exercise their independence. And NERSA, for instance, has rejected Eskom's tariff proposals on several occasions.
Yeah. The public service in South Africa, I don't want to compare it even with Namibia because it's completely different. I mean, but it seems to be quite ineffective, especially at local government level. with very limited ability or will to provide local services, with a breakdown of providing electricity and also water. Do you foresee a change with that, with a new coalition that still needs to be worked out?
Well, I'm hopeful that there will be a change in the DA as part of its election manifesto. As said, we've learned lessons within the Western Cape that we can apply in other provinces, and we then send secondary people there to help in terms of local government.
Okay.
They are, even on the part of the previous dispensation, local governments, you had various DA-run municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, in Eastern Cape, in Gauteng, that where the provincial government was an ANC-led one, but the DA could show that at municipal level it could still make a difference there. Yeah. So that I'm hopeful that will. But the problems is that in terms of maintenance, that's a 20-year problem, and it's not going to be solved overnight.
KwaZulu-Natal seems now to have an even bigger problem with MK in control there. Do you think the service will further deteriorate there, or do you foresee any other critical factors that can play a role?
Yep, I think services in KwaZulu-Natal are likely to deteriorate more, but they also have problems in terms of climate change. So they are not climate change resilient. If we look at the April 22 floods, had major impact there. They're still doing repairs. If we have another floods or coming at some stage or other, I don't think they do have some world-class ones. The N3 toll road is world-class, and the ports are in the process of being recovered as well. So things are, there will be pockets of excellence in KwaZulu-Natal.
If we can jump again to African governance, in terms of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, except for the political will that seems to be one problem, and also the economic differences between different countries. How many decades do you think it will take for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to really materialize in some form of practical relationship from which Africans, at least the majority of the states, can benefit and not just remain a theoretical dream as it is at this stage?
So the African Development Bank is pushing for major logistics. Without the logistics, you don't have. So, for instance, Lobito Corridor with American support as opposed to Chinese or European, that's going to be a reality within the next 2 years or so. And you will have other ones in terms of Trans-Sahara and things. So I'm very optimistic that it won't take decades. It will half a decade. So come 2028, 2029, there'll be a material change compared to what it is now.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will definitely then at 2029 have a further interview with you, Mr. Preus. Thank you very much for your optimism.
Yeah.